Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart. For those of you that are new, and today I'll be breaking down this four-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Tuesday night. Nice little four-game slate after a big 11-game slate tonight. So let's get right into it. For the games tomorrow, 7-point spread between the Grizzlies and the Pelicans, 232.5 game total. Spurs Bucks, 16.5 point spread, 249. So that's very, very interesting. Celtics Warriors, 5.5 point spread, 231.5. And then Suns Blazers, 7-point spread, 231. So some interesting games, some potential blowouts, but obviously DFS, we're going to have to play through it. So hopping into Memphis here, we have Ja Morant, should be back. He should be good to go here for this game tomorrow, which obviously changes the whole dynamic of this team here. Interesting to see if he's on a minutes limit or not. I mean, if he's not, I really like the price tag of 9.3 Ja. I think he's been able to practice with the team. I'm not really sure, even if he hasn't. I'm assuming he's been practicing on the side. Sure, he could be a little bit rusty, but if he's good to go, I mean, we know what Ja can do. He was pretty much like a triple-double threat every single game last season, so would really like him there at 9.3K if there's no minutes limit. Now, if there is, don't love the price tag. And it would kind of take everyone else out of play for me. Bane, 8.7, he'd be a little bit too pricey. Jaren Jackson Jr., kind of the same thing. And then the secondary options, if they do start like a Tillman, because, Biyombo did miss tonight, I wouldn't mind getting to Tillman at 5K. But otherwise, everyone else is kind of priced up a little bit too high for me with a guy like Ja Morant, who's heavy usage to the point where it does really affect everyone else on this team. So it's really just dependent on that Ja news. On the Pelican side here, good matchup here for the Pelican side, obviously with the big three all healthy in play. It's just one of those things. I think Brandon Ingram is probably my favorite of the big three. CJ McCollum, probably the safest just in terms of his floor. And then Zion, probably the most up and down. Obviously, the priciest, but we know the ceiling Zion can bring. It just, will he play? And if he is, what game will we get from Zion? That's kind of the big question mark. He's the question mark of the big three, but I think they're all pretty strong secondary options. J-Val, one of those things where it's just minutes, right? Like if he stays out of foul trouble, he's been seeing, 30 or more minutes pretty much the past like 2.5 weeks. Now, with a team like Memphis, sure, could that change a little bit with, if they go small, Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5, J-Val having to guard the perimeter, not really the best for him. So a little bit of risk there. Don't love the price tag on him. He's just more of an okay play for me. Off the bench, I still think Trey Murphy is a pretty strong play there at 5.8. Herb Jones, kind of the same thing. He should see, if he stays out of foul trouble, he should see, mid to high 20s, if not into the low 30s minutes at 5.5K. I think he's a fine play, but now that he's like the fourth, fifth option, not the best offensively. Alvarado should see around 15, 20 minutes off the bench. I think he's an okay play. Don't love that his price tag really jumped up. Najee is questionable. Obviously, if he misses, we could look at, Dyson Daniels, who'd probably play around 15, 20 minutes. He'd be an okay value play. Same thing with Najee, but nothing too crazy there for that game. Moving on to the Spurs here. Obviously, we know that Victor is out. I'm assuming they're just going to start, Keldon, Vassell, Sohan, probably Branham, and then Zach Collins at 4.9K for Zach Collins. Even though there's huge blowout risk, I think you just want to take that shot with him. This game, hopefully stays close for at least a half, at least, maybe 2.5, 3/4. And at 4.9K, Zach Collins looks really, really good with there being no Victor. Now, obviously, we do have to kind of wait for the news. It's Pop. He could start some random ass person like, Barlow or one of these, random centers. They have like 15. So let's wait and see. But obviously, there is huge blowout risk. So with that in mind, we can definitely take a shot on some of these cheaper guys, like whoever will be the backup center. We'll get obviously more news tomorrow. I don't mind if you take a shot on these kind of mid-range guys. They'll be super low owned, but I do think I'd rather take a shot on some of these cheaper guys. Maybe like, Champagne here. Maybe like one of the backup centers, like a guy like Barlow or Sissoko. Kind of these secondary guys, maybe a Mamu. He's a guy who is a decent point per minute guy when he does get the minutes. So that's kind of more wait and see approach to see what happens with the starting five, the centers. And then from there, I'll have more updates on my Twitter of who I want to get to. For the Spurs side here, if you think this game stays close for 2.5 quarters, maybe 3, obviously Giannis and Dame look fantastic. Even Middleton at 6.4K, he's seen around 30 minutes now the past like 4 or 5 games. So I'd have a ton of interest in all three of them. Brook Lopez, more of that secondary GPP option. I'd still think I'd rather get to one of the main guys rather than Brook. Beasley's questionable. If he misses, sure, it does open up a little bit of value to a guy like, Andre Jackson Jr., especially at this blowout run. He could get extended. He could be a little bit more aggressive in that blowout run. Beauchamp, kind of the same thing. Maybe sees around 10 to 15 minutes if there's a blowout run. maybe 15 to 20. He'd be more aggressive off the bench. And then Pat Connaughton should see around 15 minutes. If there's blood run, maybe he'll get a little bit, but he is kind of a veteran, a little bit injury prone as well. So um, don't know if we need to get to this value right now. Really just depends on Beasley. If Beasley's good to go, which it looks like he should be, these value plays, it's really just a risk. You're really hoping that this game blows out so you can get to them. Moving on to Phoenix here versus Portland. Beal's still out, so really like giving to Booker and Durant, if not both of them. I think they're both firmly in play just because they have huge upside playing alongside each other, and they're both coming at pretty solid price tags here against Portland. So really like into one of them, if not both of them. I think Durant's slightly safer, but Booker does have kind of that double upside there with the assists running point guard. So really like both of them here. I think Nurkic is a fine, mid-range play. He's been a lot better the past 2 weeks than he was for kind of that middle part of the season where he's, kind of fallen off a little bit, then he really picked it back up. So I think he's a fine play. Don't want to get out of my way to play him though at 7.4. Eric Gordon, I've seen around 30-ish minutes, but now that's, there's Booker, there's Durant, more of just a, very score independent guy. Same thing with Grayson Allen. I think he'd be a little bit better of a play than Eric Gordon, but still, I think they're fine plays. Don't really have any interest in either one of them right now. Nazir Little will see some run. Same thing with Bates Diop. Same thing with Drew Eubanks. So I think Eubanks would probably be my favorite of the group. And then Me Too's minutes are going down. Moving on to Portland here. I really like Anthony Simons. I mean, it's the minutes, right? Like as I said, he should see, if it's a close game, should see 35 plus minutes and 20 plus shots. I mean, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, the fourth game did not. Then 5 and 6 he did. So really like Anthony Simmons. Way too cheap. Or excuse me, Simons. Way too cheap here at that price tag. Jeremy Grant, I think, is an interesting play. Playing massive amount of minutes. He's shooting the ball a ton as well. 35 fantasy points, 50 bomb that last game. So, I mean, if he's going to be playing close to 40 minutes, really like him at that price tag. Shannon Sharp, I think he's an interesting play. I'd rather get to, Grant and Simons, but still, he's there. He should play big minutes if he's good to go. Off the bench, we should see Malcolm Brogdon at that price tag off the bench. I think it's one of those things he's just going to get phased out of offense here. DFS wise, I don't think there's a need to get to him. I think Ayton makes for an interesting, mid-range play. We know he has 40 plus upside. It's very sporadic. After starting the season decently strong, he's really fallen off the past, week, 2 weeks. But I still think he's a solid GPP play. In terms of the rest of the team, Scoot Henderson, you can take a shot on him. He's actually been productive recently. So I don't mind taking a shot at him at 5.3. Otherwise, no real interest in the value. And then moving on to this last game here, Boston versus Golden State. A game I do really like to target. I think Tatum's a really strong spin up play here at 9.5. Fantastic price tag to get Tatum at. Brown, fine secondary option. Porzingis is questionable. So we'll see if he's good to go or not. If he's not, I'm assuming they start Horford at 5.9, which is not the best price tag, but he should see around 30-ish minutes. He'd still be a solid play. Then it'd just be a little bit of a bump offensively to guys like White, Holiday, and Brown. But they're all priced out right, so you don't really have to get to any of them, necessarily. If I'd rather get to Tatum still over one of these guys in the mid range. That's really it. No interest in any of the value guys. And on to Golden State Warriors here. We'll see if Pod starts again. If he does, I think he's a fine play. 33 minutes around there he should get. He stays out of foul trouble. Chris Paul seeing elevated minutes recently as well. But right now, I think I'd still rather get to Steph. I mean, 9K for Steph. We know the upside is there. It just, he went 0 last game. Would not be surprised if he goes for like 15 threes this game. Comes back 2 of 12. When was the last time we've seen Steph go 2 of 12? Like never. So expect a massive bounce back here for Steph Curry, even against, a very good Boston team. There is definitely some blowout risk here. But Klay Thompson's been playing pretty well. If you think that it's going to continue, you can definitely ride the hot streak with him, but I'd still rather get to Steph. I think Chris Paul's just a little bit safer than Klay. The minutes have been great the past 4 or 5 games. So I think it's a better, safer option than Klay, but Klay is probably the better GPP option. Pods is a fine, mid-range play. Draymond is still out. So whoever they start for Draymond, whether that was, I think it was Kuminga that last game. Actually, it looks like it may have been Sarge. Whoever starts, I think are strong plays. And then whoever comes off the bench, whether it's Kuminga starts, I think Kuminga is a strong play. Sarge should be a pretty strong play as well. Then the opposite, Sarge starts, Kuminga would be strong off the bench. Looney, the minutes are just not the best right now on him. And that's really it. Moody we can get to if we want looking for some cheaper value, but that's about it. Trace Jackson Davis could get some run there because he was playing well, but that's just something very hard to trust going forward. So I do have a good amount of interest in this Golden State team right now, just with their kind of the rotations are running. Where did Wiggins go? He's coming off the bench. He actually had a really good game there that last game, so should see about mid 20s minutes. He should be a little bit more aggressive off the bench. Good amount of interest in him. Kind of stepping back up into a starting spot. So Simons, Curry, Durant, Zach Collins are kind of the four key plays I'm looking at right now. Obviously, we do have some news to wait on. So make sure to stay updated with the news. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.